friends. So, morning. I've been thinking about the topic of how to start difficult conversations for a while, because doing therapy and generally in just doing life, like trying to adult and seeing like the difficulties that come up in my relationships and in other relationships, this tends to be an issue. It's not that we don't know what upset us or that we don't know we maybe need to apologize, but it's like we don't know how to step into the conversation in a way that's like not a complete turn off to the other person. So here's a few tips. But first, what are the reasons we don't like to have difficult conversations? One, the thing we don't want to hear is pride. We are proud. Humans in general are proud. And if you're watching this and you're thinking, I'm not a proud person, I'm like the nicest person I know. People don't ever have issues with me. And you the main one that's proud, okay? We don't like to admit fault. We don't like to feel awkward or uncomfortable. We don't like to put ourselves in a vulnerable situation. And a lot of times that's why it's difficult. And the other thing is, a lot of times we don't want the other person, we're afraid of their reaction, right? We're afraid that if I bring up something upset me, or if I bring up something that I did wrong, you're gonna beat me up about it. So I think those are two things we kind of need to get past and move forward. So here's some tips. So the first example I'm going to give is really when maybe nothing specific has happened where you need to bring up a conversation about an incident, but it's more so fact-finding. A lot of us are kind of on a journey of self-discovery. We're going to therapy. We're trying to learn how to do relationships better. And so a really good question to ask is, how do you experience me as a blank? So how do you experience me as a friend, lover, spouse, coworker, business partner? These are really good questions, because the thing about us as humans is we can kind of fall asleep to our own shortcomings. We don't always have an accurate view of how other people experience us, right? You may experience yourself as honest and outgoing and fun, and someone else may experience you as harsh and abrasive. And if you're talking to someone who's very non-confrontational and you know they're really uncomfortable with saying anything like quote unquote negative, you can even say, give me 2 areas for improvement. If you think they're just going to say all good things, say, you can tell me two areas that are strengths and 2 areas for improvement. The second way you can start a difficult conversation, particularly if you're in like a serious dating relationship or marriage or an engagement period. And when I say dating, I don't mean like you've known the person for a week or like a month. Like, you probably wouldn't really say this if that was the case. But saying something like, how could I have loved you better this week? Yes, this is putting you in a vulnerable position potentially to hear some things that may be a little difficult to hear. But remember, again, we talked about pride and like trying to put that aside. So you're really asking this question only if you're prepared to hear something that's actually a constructive criticism. Like, don't ask this question if you are gonna just fall apart if someone actually tells you something you could improve on. But this is a way to start those conversations and to make it like a regular thing. You know, if the person can't think of anything at the time, you can revisit the conversation, which is what we're going to talk about next. So this might be a good thing to bring up maybe every week or every month. So segueing into the next tip on how to start hard conversations when there's already been an argument or disagreement. Here's what you can say. You know, I didn't like the way we ended things last night. And so I'd like to revisit the conversation sometime today, maybe over dinner. My treat. That's a really good way to, number one, humble yourself, right? So you bringing it up kind of implies to the person that you potentially played a part, you played a role, you're taking some accountability. You're not saying everything was your fault, but you're taking accountability that the conversation went left. And you're giving the person time to process and prime, because there's nothing worse. If you've ever been on the receiving end of someone who's had a long time to think about what they have to say to you, and then they just bring it up and then say all the things, and you're like, I didn't know this conversation was going to happen, so I don't have nothing to say. So that's a really helpful tip I would use. And the way life is, it's not always easy to say things directly to someone. Let's say it's your spouse and you get up before them and you don't want to wake them up. So maybe leave a note on the pillow. maybe do like a FaceTime call or send them like a cute video or something like that. I don't love texting things like that. Like, for me, texting is kind of a casual thing, or like making plans, or I would avoid texting. You could text that though. You could text it. That's not wrong to text that, but I would try to say it to someone's face if you can, because you're gonna have to have the conversation face to face. So we might as well just get over that discomfort. This tip is when you know you have done something that you need to make an amends for. So it wasn't as much a mutual, we both kind of had a disagreement type thing. It's like there's a situation where you spoke out of turn, potentially you could have hurt somebody, you don't like the way you carried yourself. You can say this. Maybe you and your friend or spouse or whoever are watching a movie or chilling or playing a game or doing whatever, or on the phone. You could say this. You know what? I need to do better at blank. I need to do better at communicating. I need to do better at telling you when something's upset me instead of just giving silent treatment. Like, I noticed that last month I did it after X, Y, and Z, and then I noticed yesterday I kind of did it, and I actually need to do better with that. Now, this may really take someone aback. They may be like, I wasn't even upset about that. I didn't even notice that you do that. I mean, yeah, you do that, but I didn't take it that way. But the thing about being in adult relationships and taking accountability and responsibility is you don't only apologize and repair things when you're caught or when someone's mad at you. You can repair things just off the strength of knowing you can do better, and bringing that to someone's attention and kind of asking them to hold you accountable. And saying like, I'd like to repair that. Like, I'd like to not do that. Work has been super stressful. I notice I've been drinking a lot more. You don't deserve to have to clean up my messes when I do that, and I've been noticing that, and so I just wanted to bring that up and say, like, I'm committed to changing. So this is something, when you bring it up, you actually have to have some intentionality about wanting to change it. So don't say, I really need to do better at X, Y, and Z. I need to do better at like cleaning up after myself, or helping you out around the house. Like, if you have no intention of doing that, I wouldn't bring it up, but you should help clean up. The last one is how to start a hard conversation when someone has hurt or offended you. So I would say something like this. Let's say y'all in the car about to get out and go out to eat or go shopping or go on a walk or something. I would say, just real quick, I wanted to bring something up. I love you, and I don't think it was your intention, but yesterday when we were out with your friends and you guys kind of like ganged up a little bit and were laughing at me, that brought up some rejection issues that I have, which I am working through, but that is something I'm requesting that you don't do anymore because it was hurtful to me. So that's just an example, but starting with validating, saying I love you, or saying something that's validating. Don't just say I love you if you don't mean it, but saying, I don't think it was your intention, but when this happened, this is how I felt. When this happened, this is how I felt. That's the blueprint. Validate, explain the situation, explain how you felt. Not accuse, say what they did, and say how they made you feel. You're taking ownership of your feelings, right? You're taking ownership. That person's actions they were a trigger, but they do not make you feel rejection. They're bringing up feelings that were probably already there, right? And feelings that belong to you, and feelings that it's your responsibility to deal with and handle. And I know it's hard, especially in like romantic relationships. Sometimes we kind of make people responsible for how we feel. People are responsible for their actions. That's what you're holding people accountable to. You're not holding people accountable for your emotions. You're holding them accountable for how they act. Yes, it produces anxiety to bring up difficult conversations, but the more you practice it, it's kind of like working a muscle. when you're working out. The more you do it, the stronger you'll become, the more ease that you'll have. I would just recommend it, and pay attention to your tone. Like, none of these are going to work if you're yelling or if you're interrupting or over talking. So try the tips in a calm way. I will say, when I'm doing therapy, particularly with men, one of the biggest barriers in relationships, and one of the biggest reasons they shut down in conversation, is being yelled at or disrespected or overtold. It's not just men, so don't come for me. It's not just men, and men and women overtalk, but something to remember. So hopefully, let me know how those work, y'all. It's hard to start hard conversations. It's hard, but don't avoid it. Don't avoid it. Don't let resentments build up. Don't bury your feelings. Don't suppress a whole bunch of stuff. Bring things up when they don't sit well with you, or when you can validate someone else's existence by saying, hey, I shouldn't have done that. So sorry. Let's go for ice cream.